straight in today with spells. So, as I mentioned in the last video, I get spellcasting, which is described on the previous page, if I can turn it. And this describes the difference between cantrips and spells. So, just as a quick recap, cantrips don't require a spell slot to use. You can cast them as many times a day as you like, so they will be less powerful than spells. Spells, your level will determine how many spell slots you have per day, and that's the amount of spells you can cast at that level. So at level 1, I can cast 2 level 1 spells. They can be the same spell twice, or 2 different ones, and I will have 4 spells prepared per day. So of those 4, I can cast 2 per day. So first we will take a look at cantrips. So these are the cantrips, I'll read them out for you here. Druidcraft, Elementalism, Guidance, Mending, Message, Poison Spray, Produce Flame, Resistance, Shillelagh, Spare the Dying, Starry Wisp, Thorn Whip, and Thunderclap. So these are the ones that I get to choose from. Now, if we also remember from last week, because I went for Magician as my primal order, I know 1 extra cantrip from the list. So my class level gets me 2. So with that one I get 3. There's quite a few on here. I know what the majority of these do, but there is this spell section later on in the book which we'll take a quick look at later, which will describe what each of these do. So some of these will be, they will create damage. So for example, Poison Spray is a damage spell. Starry Wisp will be a damage spell, Thunderclap, things like that. Now, because these are spells that you can use however many number of times you like, what you'll want to do is have an idea first and foremost of whether you want to be using your spellcasting mostly to attack and mostly in combat, or as a support for other characters. For my character, and I think in general, it's really good to have at least 1 cantrip that does damage, so that if you run out of your spell slots and you're in combat, you will always have some way to deal damage, particularly if attacking with a weapon is not going to help with your particular character if they're not strong with their weapons. So I will be choosing at least 1 cantrip that causes damage, so that I have that to fall back on in combat. But I like the idea that my character, at least to start with, is mostly a support to other characters. That's kind of her role. It might develop beyond that, but at the moment she doesn't have any experience in combat or fighting, so I just can't imagine that it's something at the moment that she would be excited by or that she would rush into. It would be a much more hesitancy there. So firstly, I will just remind you that this does give you a few suggestions for cantrips. The 2 that are suggested here are Druidcraft and Produce Flame. What I will do is I will show you the descriptions of the spells that I'm going to go for. Some of these are very useful. For example, Message. You can telepathically send a short message to someone within a certain range. That's really handy. Shillelagh, which turns your melee weapon so that it does slightly more damage. That's always handy if you're in a bind. The first one I'm going to go for is Druidcraft. I just, firstly, it's a bit of a personal preference, I guess. I really like Druidcraft and the idea of it. It's only a small cantrip, it doesn't do much, but I think you can get really creative with it. So, here. Whispering to the spirits of nature, you create one of the following effects within range. Weather sensor. You create a tiny, harmless sensory effect that predicts what the weather will be at your location for the next 24 hours. This effect might manifest as a golden orb for clear skies, a cloud for rain, falling snowflakes for snow, and so on. This effect persists for 1 round. Bloom. You instantly make a flower blossom, a seed pod open, or a leaf bud bloom. Sensory effect. You create a harmless sensory effect, such as falling leaves, spectral dancing fairies, a gentle breeze, the sound of an animal, or the faint odour of a skunk. The effect must fit in a 5-foot cube. And fire play. You light or snuff out a candle, a torch, or a campfire. I just think first and foremost, it's a quintessential druid spell. It's literally in the name. I kind of think, my belief is that if other druids are teaching their ways, this is probably one of the first things that they would teach somebody else coming into this particular school of magic. And it's one of those spells that I think that you would be so excited about that you would use over and over again for the most pointless things for probably like the first, I don't know how long, maybe the first few months or the first year of learning magic, and kind of like playing a favourite song on repeat. Eventually you would get sick of it and never go back to it again. And of course I can swap out 1 cantrip per level that I gain. So at level 2 I could swap a cantrip out if I feel like I'm not using it very much, or I could swap one out at level 3. So each time I level up I can swap 1 cantrip for another. So if it's not that useful I can swap it out. But as my character is someone who is very lost in the stars, very lost in her own brain, her own mind, easily distracted, it just feels like something she would do to randomly produce some falling leaves to drop around her. Very aesthetic, so I'll pop that on my sheet here. So, level is technically 0, but I am going to write it as C for cantrip. I'm going to pop Druidcraft here. So any of this I will fill in later once we have everything written down and we're going through the spells. You might notice that there is some faint tracing of where writing was already on here. That is reminiscent of an entire section of the previous video that I ended up losing, so I had to rub that out so that I could refilm it. So, the next one that I'm going to go for is a much more supporting cantrip, so I am going to go for guidance. Guidance is a really, really handy spell, so let's find it. No, not there. Spell reason that that's important is if I'm casting that and something distracts me, or if you're casting a spell that requires concentration during combat and you are attacked and that attack lands, you will then have to roll a separate dice to see if you maintain your concentration on that spell or cantrip. And if you lose your concentration, it ends and you would need to recast it. So really important thing to track there. So I've done all of my cantrips, so we will take a look at the level 1 spells now. So I'll just read through them first. Animal friendship, charm person, create or destroy water, cure wounds, detect magic, detect poison and disease, entangle, fairy fire, fog cloud, good berry, healing word, ice knife, jump, long strider, protection from evil and good, purify food and drink, speak with animals, and thunder wave. So again, a mix of very supporting spells and also damage spells, combat spells. There are some things here that do feel very druidic: animal friendship, protection from evil and good, purify food and drink, good berry, that kind of thing. Now one of these I do already get, which is speak with animals. Now, because I'm slightly, I wouldn't say neurotic, but because I have accidentally done these in alphabetical order, I'm going to write the rest of my spells in alphabetical order. So I'm going to need to remember that speak with animals needs to go on there at some point. So I've had a look at these, and there are some that are really handy. For example, fairy fire. That is a spell that lights up creatures in a certain area, and any attacks made against those creatures have an advantage. So that's really handy. There are a number of healing spells here: good berry, healing word, cure wounds. I will definitely be going for one of these. There are pros and cons to all of them. It will come down to cure wounds or healing word. So healing word it can be done at a distance. I wouldn't need to be near the person, I would need to be within a radius of them and see them, which is really handy if someone needs healing at a distance, but the healing amount is less. Cure wounds it will heal for a lot more, but it is a touch spell. I need to be able to touch the person. So pros and cons to both, but I am going to go for cure wounds. I think that the higher healing is going to come in more handy than the distance but less healing. So cure wounds there. I've just realised that I've written that straight away. To be fair, I'm not going to choose any of these ones, so we're still in alphabetical order so far. So there is a few sort of damage spells here. So, for example, ice knife, that will deal damage. We've got here thunder wave. It is, it will push enemies back, but I believe from the top of my head it will cause damage. Off the top of my head, I could be wrong. The rest aren't particularly damage heavy. There's a lot of area effect spells here, Thunderwave being one of them that will push back an area, or things that are in that area. Fog cloud will be a certain sized fog cloud, alter your own abilities, so jump and long strider are both going to affect your jump distance and your speed, so that you can move further, things like that. So I am going for Ice Knife and Entangle and Long Strider. There's a lot of information there, but Ice Knife is I would say the most damagey one here. Entangle is just really, really handy to entangle someone who is near your melee fighter or barbarian. Is going to be really handy to them. And Long Strider, I like the idea of being able to move further because I have Cure Wounds and that is a touch spell. If I do need to reach someone to heal them before the combat is over, having Long Strider will just give me a bit of extra distance to reach people. So we will start with Entangle. Let's take a look at this one. Oh, I have gone too far there. Does anyone else have to go through the alphabet in their head just to remember it? I'm sat here going F, G, E, E, F, G. I was already on the page, I think. So, Entangle. Grasping plants sprout from the ground in a 20-foot square within range. For the duration, these plants turn the ground in the area into difficult terrain. They disappear when the spell ends. Each creature other than you in the area, when you cast the spell, must succeed on a strength saving throw or have the restrained condition until the spell ends. A restrained creature can take an action to make a strength athletics check against your spell save DC. On a success, it frees itself from the grasping plants and is no longer restrained by them. You can see an example of this here. Means they're restrained, can't move, makes them a little bit easier to hit if they're not able to run around. Then we have Ice Knife. Yep, that's the next one in the alphabet. H-I, here we go. These pages are making an absolute mockery out of me today. I don't appreciate it. Here we go. You create a shard of ice and fling it at one creature within range. Make a ranged spell attack against the target. On a hit, the target takes 1d10 piercing damage. Hit or miss, the shard then explodes. The target and each creature within 5 feet of it must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or take 2d6 cold damage. Really handy one there because it not only harms the thing or creature or person you're trying to hit, but also any creature within 5 feet of it too. Very handy. Oh, that's a picture to land on. And then finally, Long Strider. Long Strider. You touch a creature. The target speed increases by 10 feet until the spell ends. So just that extra 10 feet of movement can be really, really handy. Oh, and then of course we got Speak with Animals. So, Speak with Animals. For the duration, you can comprehend and verbally communicate with beasts, and you can use any of the influence action skill options with them. Most beasts have little to say about topics that don't pertain to survival or companionship, but at minimum, a beast can give you information about nearby locations and monsters, including whatever it has perceived within the past day. Very, very druid friendly there. So, the next one on my list will be ice knife. God damn it. No, it will not. Once again, I am struggling with my alphabet. Words are supposed to be my strong suit. Entangle. Cure. Wound. Oh my gosh. That's because I'm just, honestly, it's because I'm not concentrating. My eyes were literally looking at this as I started writing. Ice knife is what we need to write there. And then long strider. And then finally, speak with animals. So, while we're on speak with animals, we'll work our way backwards and we'll start filling in these parts. So, this isn't a concentration. My casting time is action or ritual. I'm just going to shorthand it. The range is self. Now, under notes, you can put whatever you like here. I like to make a note of the components. So this is basically what you need to be able to cast that spell, and I will come to that in a moment. So I'm just going to pop VS there, and then I think that's everything. And I'm going to put that it's for 10 minutes. So you could make notes here on what the spell does if you need to remind yourself, that kind of thing. I just like to make the important notes because generally I will know what these do. We will jump to Starry Wisp before we move backwards through the alphabet and challenge my brain. So this one, the casting time is an action. The range is 60 feet. I'm going to pop those components there, and I'm going to put that it's instant. And then, what do we have next? Long strider. I will eventually be doing a video where I talk through these spells. The spell is much like I'm doing with the monsters in the monster manual. So, here we have casting time is, oh my goodness, and I can imagine you're all screaming at me. It's been a really, really long day, guys. I can't even blame it on the heat this time though. The heat's been completely fine today. I no longer have that as my excuse. So long strider action. The range is touch. I do need to rub out instant, but I can leave the VS and just add an M and pop 1 hour. So VS, I'll just put dirt there. I like the idea with this character that she does have a pouch with these things in, knowing what her spells are going to require, that she sort of has them ready. So I think I've got everything for that one. So we'll head to Ice Knife. Too far already. See, I'm doing it again. Muttering the alphabet under my breath. spell slots. What I will do is, as I use a spell, I will colour this in to say that I've used one, and then another one to say I've used two, and then I will know that I've used all of my spells for that day, unless I have any magical item that lets me replenish them. And then over here is what you'll be using to cast your spells. So my spell casting ability, as mentioned, is Wisdom. That means that my spell casting modifier is my Wisdom modifier, which is +3. Now spell save DC, this is explained over here, and I think we covered it in the earlier creating a character chapter. But my spell save DC, many spells specify that a target makes a saving throw to avoid some or all of the spell's effects. The spell specifies the ability that the target uses for the save and what happens on a success or failure. So if you remember for my Entangle, it's a strength athletics saving throw to get out of it. And my spell save DC is 8, plus my spell casting ability modifier, which is 3, that's 11, plus my proficiency bonus, which is 2, so that makes 13. And then my spell attack bonus. Some spells require the caster to make an attack roll to determine whether the spell hits a target. I believe Ice Knife is one of them. Here's how to calculate the attack modifier for your spells. So it's my spell casting ability modifier, which is 3, plus my proficiency bonus, which is 2. So that's +5. So when I roll to use Ice Knife, I will add 5 onto that roll to see if I hit my enemy. So this is where we're going to fill in my weapons and damage cantrips. So this is why there isn't any sort of area on here to write things like your damage. There's a little space on here, so what you would do is just write the important bits on here like I have, and then over here you would add in any spells that require you to roll for damage, that kind of thing. So we'll pop that in there later. So that, I believe, is my spells sorted. So moving on now to alignment. So I mentioned this in a past, I believe part 1, that I was going to be saving this until probably part 3. Alignment it can be a lot of fun. I've gone too far. Here we go. So I'm going to read through this whole section here. Choose an alignment. Choose your character's alignment from the options below and note it on your character sheet. D&D assumes that player characters aren't of an evil alignment. Check with your DM before making an evil character. The 9 alignments. A creature's alignment broadly describes its ethical attitudes and ideals. Alignment is a combination of 2 factors. One identifies morality, good, evil, or neutral, and the other describes attitudes toward order, lawful, chaotic, neutral. The summaries of the alignments below describe the typical behaviour of a creature with that alignment. Individuals can vary from that behaviour. So essentially you would pick what you believe your character's alignment to be. And generally it's like it acts as your moral compass. You would want to always has to be, let's say, lawful evil. It might be that that's what they start out as because that's how they've been raised, and through the goodness of the characters they found themselves among in whatever circumstances they are, they begin to change slowly but surely, and their alignment might shift. So it's not set in stone. However, it's a guide to helping you with playing your character in a way that feels natural. And it might be that over time that alignment changes because of influences around your character. It might be that your character stays staunchly in that alignment. That's entirely up to you. So, we'll start with lawful good. Lawful good creatures endeavour to do the right thing as expected by society. Someone who fights injustice and protects the innocent without hesitation is probably lawful good. Neutral good. Neutral good creatures do the best they can, working within rules but not feeling bound by them. A kindly person who helps others according to their needs is probably neutral good. Chaotic good. Chaotic good creatures act as their conscience directs with little regard for what others expect. A rebel who waylays cruel barons, tax collectors, and uses the stolen money to help the poor is probably chaotic good. Lawful neutral. Lawful neutral individuals act in accordance with law, tradition, or personal codes. Someone who follows a disciplined rule of life and isn't swayed either by the demands of those in need or by the temptations of evil is probably lawful neutral. Neutral. Neutral is the alignment of those who prefer to aid. That's definitely not what that says. We'll try that again. Neutral is the alignment of those who prefer to avoid moral questions and don't take sides, doing what seems best at the time. Someone who's bored by moral debate is probably neutral. Chaotic neutral. Chaotic neutral creatures follow their whims, valuing their personal freedom above all else. A scoundrel who wanders the land living by their wits is probably chaotic neutral. Lawful evil. Lawful evil creatures methodically, I don't know why I said it that way. Lawful evil creatures methodically take what they want within the limits of a code of tradition, loyalty, or order. An aristocrat exploiting citizens while scheming for power is probably lawful evil. Neutral evil. Neutral evil is the alignment of those who are untroubled by the harm they cause as they pursue their desires. A criminal who robs and murders as they please is probably neutral evil. Chaotic evil. Chaotic evil creatures act with arbitrary violence, spurred by their hatred or bloodlust. A villain pursuing schemes of vengeance and havoc is probably chaotic evil. Unaligned creatures. Most creatures that lack the capacity for rational thought don't have alignments. They are unaligned. Sharks are savage predators, for example, but they aren't evil. They are unaligned. And then I believe there's a slight sketch over here. Yeah, lovely little image. Let's see if I can just bring this a little closer without knocking anything. Let's have a look. Here we go. Whether it focuses or not. So we just have 4 creatures It says here, alignments might be visualized as a grid like this, along with creatures that embody those alignments. There's a lot of really cool examples online using pop culture references and things to try and give you examples of what those kinds of alignments might look like in a person. Alignment and personality. Alignment can shape a character's personality, goals, and core beliefs. Looking at the two elements of an alignment, you can use the list below to inspire details of your character's personality. So chaotic, we have boastful, impulsive, rebellious, self-absorbed. Good, we have compassionate, helpful, honest, kind. Evil, we have dishonest, vengeful, cruel, greedy. Lawful, we have cooperative, loyal, judgmental, methodical. And neutral, we have selfish, disinterested, laconic, pragmatic. So you could combine some of these. So if, for example, you were chaotic good, you could be impulsive but compassionate. If you were neutral evil, you could be selfish and dishonest. If you were, let's say, neutral good, you could be honest but disinterested. So it's a nice way of flavouring the character. So let me finish writing up on my sheet and I'll be with you in a moment. So what I've done here is I've just finished writing some additional features onto my character sheet. So I finished writing my weapons and damage cantrips. So I popped Ice Knife and Starry Wisp on here. My attack bonus, so what I'll add to my roll when I roll to use these spells and attack, and the damage that they will do. Any additional notes here? I did in the end decide that my starting equipment was going to be A, so I get leather armor, a shield, a sickle, my druidic focus, which is a quarterstaff, an explorer's pack, a herbalism kit, and 9 gold pieces. So what that means is that I now have a quarterstaff and a sickle to attack with. So with this, it is my strength modifier and my proficiency bonus, because I'm proficient in light weapons and simple weapons, which both of these fall under. So I will get my proficiency bonus plus my strength modifier. So as you can see, my strength is -1. So my attack bonus is +1 for both of these. I probably won't be using them very often. The last thing that I'm going to write in here is my armor class. So now that I've picked my starting equipment, I do get the leather armor and a shield. So we're going to head to the equipment section, which is where I got the information from. I've definitely gone too far again. It's here somewhere. Here we are, perfect. So I have the leather armor, so my armor class will be 11 plus my dexterity. So with just the leather armor, it will be 11 plus 2, which will be 13. However, I do have a shield, so that gives me +2. So my armor class is going to be 15. So I will pop that on here, and I will scribble in that I have a shield. Perfect. So I believe that is everything for me. There this is where you'll track your coins. So I got the 9 gold pieces from my druidic class, and I got 50 pieces from my background. I'll just quickly show you. So again, it's a choose A or B style thing, and I've gone with the 50 gold pieces because that will be more useful to my character. So you would keep track of that down here. Here is our magic item attunement. So as you progress in the story, you might come across magic items that give you certain bonuses. Some of those might require you to be attuned to them, which is a little bit like sitting down, learning about it, a little bit of a ritual, and you become attuned to that item so you know how to use it to its fullest extent. And this is the amount of magic item slots that you get to attune to. So if you find 4 magic items, all of which require attunement to use, you would have to choose out of those just 3. We have the equipment here, languages, backstory and personality, and appearance. This backstory and personality box isn't the biggest, so you might want an extra page for that. I'm just having a think about my character's alignment. I think I can essentially ignore these bottom 3 down here. I certainly don't think at the moment that she's chaotic. Neutral feels a little, it could be a possibility. Lawful doesn't feel right for her. I do feel like she has a slight rebellious streak in her from being so good her life by being sort of very ruled by a guardian, having to be very prim and proper. So I am thinking either neutral good or neutral. I think at the moment, it's come back to that choice. I hate choosing anything. I'm terrible at it. Chaotic good characters act as their conscience directs with little regard for what others expect. A rebel who waylays a cruel bonus tax collectors uses the stolen money to help the poor is probably chaotic good. I mean, chaotic good is a very common alignment. Neutral good creatures do the best they can, working within rules but not feeling bound by them. A kindly person who helps others according to their needs is probably neutral good. I feel like neutral good is probably where she falls at the moment, so let's pop that on here. Perfect. Wonderful. So that is my character sheets done. Once I hit level 3, I will pop my subclass on this page, but generally that is everything that I can fill in now. Pop these to one side and I will meet you back up top. So there you have it, a completed character. I know there were some of those boxes that I hadn't filled in, like my character's personality, their description. That would take much more than those boxes. I have been on Etsy and I have some other character sheets with some sort of pretty borders and things specifically that give you a bit more space for those things that I can glue into my character journal. I do create a character journal for each of my characters. It's an idea that I got off YouTube, specifically Ginny, who is a huge D&D creator on here, gave me the idea. They're nowhere near as upscale and wonderfully creative as hers, but I find it a really nice flavour, just to help embody my character thematic for the character, as opposed to writing all of that down and then trying to build a character around it. That's just the way that I have learned through experience fits well with me now. That might not fit well with you. You might want to create a character sheet based on what you think will be fun to play and then build a character around that. There is no better or worse way of doing it. The best way to do it is whatever feels good for you. So thank you so much for joining me on this character creation process. I know I've made some errors along the way. I was either letting the ASMR side sort of distract me from the technicalities of the D&D side. The heat was getting